Today we are going to talk about attachment and detachment. The reflection comes from Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 5, and then the Gospel of Luke chapter 6 verse 17 and continuing from verse 20 to 26, what we generally call the Sermon on the Mount. I want us to take serious note of this, that Christian spirituality is founded on two things: the moral code given by Moses, and then the Sermon on the Mount given by Jesus. You see it in the Gospel of Luke chapter 6, and also in the Gospel of Matthew, the same chapter 6, but that of Matthew is much more expansive. We're talking about detachment and attachment. Jeremiah 17:5 says, "Cursed be he who trusts a man." And looking at the Gospel of Luke chapter 6 verse 17 and then 20 to 26, talking about the poor in spirit, different qualities, the persecuted, the poor in spirit, and all. The problem we have in the world today is that people get attached to so many things. Some people are attached to drugs, some to their children, some to their husbands, some to their friends. And that's why you get stories of young people trying to commit suicide, maybe because their boyfriend disappointed them, as if to say that he is like a god in their life. The truth is that whatever you are attached to controls your decision and at times your willpower. It's like a god or a goddess in your life. By implication, it's a violation already of the first commandment, Exodus chapter 20 verse 3 to 5 and Deuteronomy chapter 5 verse 9. There are some steps one can take in order to be detached from anything. The first one comes from Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 5. Unalloyed and total trust in God. And then number 2, living a life of hope, knowing that once there is life, there is hope. The third one is to take a decision to have a total and humble submission to God. And this is what is actually expressed in that coinage. Poor, blessed are the poor in spirit. When Jesus talks about the poor in spirit, we must remember that, going by etymological connotation of the word poverty, there are many words in the Hebrew language that express poor. It could be rash, which means an indigent; dal, which means frugal or meager; ebion, which means unfulfilled or mendicant; ani, from where you get the English, you get the word anawin, ani or anav, which means someone degraded or an afflicted man. So that the poor, in Greek, you can talk of the tokos. So you can talk about the tokos penyes, that is someone who has some need. The tokos, someone who is an indigent. So when Jesus talks of the poor in spirit, it's not necessarily a reference to economic or social poverty, no, but an interior disposition, a spiritual attitude. In fact, if you read Psalm 1 verse 3, it says, well, he sees the wealth as a reward from God. So Jesus is not actually talking about the physically poor, someone has no money. No. It is rather a spiritual disposition, making us complete servants of God. That's what Jesus means by the Yahweh's poor, one who is poor in spirit, one who is ready to get completely detached from whatever that is material in order to be able to remain committed to God. That's why the Thomas Aquinas will say something like, the more immaterial a being is, the more knowable. And then Colossians chapter 3 verse 1, since you are of God, think about the heaven where Jesus is seated at the right hand of God. And we also remember the Gospel of Matthew chapter 6 verse 33, where your treasure is, there your heart will be. Meaning, total detachment and remaining committed to God makes you already a poor and humble servant of God, just as we see in the Magnificat, as God has favored the lowly. It also means acknowledging your lack in life and then your eternity in God. Acknowledging your lack of superiority over and above others and your spiritual deadness in God, meaning total dependence on God. But if you remain attached to something, you get some basic qualities or characteristics. Attachment makes you create a big I. That's why in Igbo here, we get very big names. Mborowaji, Okosisi, Konatakase. In fact, Enugu people will give birth to a little child and call the child It will be Aquamia. That shows where we are going to. So you create a big I, and you don't listen to any person again. Pride sets in, and then it gives you that feeling of self-sufficiency, feeling of independence. By implication, getting yourself deified and then dethroning God. And then number 3, it also leads to egocentrism, because actually Latin would say, the more we get, the more we desire. Latin would say the love of having increases by having. Amo habendi, habendo crescit in the Latin expression. It also leads to total attachment to the world, looking for comfort, for ego, for self-image, for flesh. Start thinking about what will people say if I have this style of hair? What will people say if my complexion is like that? All those nonsense things that we do. But when you know that God is the beginning and end of all, you get completely detached. When you get completely detached, you have that inner peace, that inner tranquility, which really improves your spiritual life and your spiritual disposition. That is what it means to be detached instead of remaining attached. From next week, we are going to get into a series. I want to begin a reflection on demonology, because looking at what is happening in the world today, people are jumping from here to there, from one prayer house to another, looking for deliverance, even without knowing the nature of their problem. So we're going to base our reflections, which is going to take us like up to 3 months, to talk about demonology. Based on our reflections on Ephesians chapter 6. Ephesians chapter 6 from verse 10 to 12. I request that you just go through it, pick up few words: principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, and the elemental spirits of the air. We are going to analyze all these things so as to be able to understand what devils do in our lives and how we are really able to face them as believers and as Christians. Thank you, and God bless you.